Okay, all right. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. We are back. We today are going to be continuing on with our look through the triennial Torah portion. Today we are going to be dealing with Exodus chapter 10. Exodus chapter 10. I think we will also look at Yeshayahu, Isaiah chapter 19. And we're going to be speaking about, I think, kind of the overarching subject within the Torah portion and also the prophet reading that goes along with it is the condition of the heart. The condition of the heart, right? When we understand what it is that the Most High is actually requiring of us. The main issue, the main problem, the main hang up that exists is the condition of man's heart. Is your heart able, ready to come to the Father? And so we're gonna deal with this kind of as a theme of the day. But first of all, we're going to deal with it in the context of the Torah portion. So let's go ahead and let's see. We'll probably let's we'll just read a little bit of it at a time, I guess. So let me pull up the Torah portion here. Yeah. Okay, let me just pull this up here. Exodus chapter 10. We'll start start with the first 5 verses there, nice and
loud. Exodus 10:1. And Yahweh said to Moshe, "Go into Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the heart of his servants, so that I show these signs of mine before him, and that you relate in the hearing of your son and your son's son what I have done in Mitzrayim and my signs which I have done among them, and you shall know that I am Yahweh." And Moshe and Aaron came in to Pharaoh and said to him, "Thus said Yahweh Elohim of the Hebrews, till when shall you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go so that they serve me. Or else, if you refuse to let my people go, see, tomorrow I am bringing locusts within your borders, and they shall cover the surface of the land, so that no one is able to see the land. And they shall eat the rest of what has escaped, which remains to you from the hail. And they shall eat every tree which grows up for you out of the field."
Okay, very good. So we look over here and we see going back to verse 1, we see again, we talked about this before, this hardening of the heart of Pharaoh. And it says also the hearts of his servants. We'll deal with that, but it says that so that I show these signs of mine before him. When we look at what's going on over here with the Most High and these various plagues that are going through the land, we see that Yahweh is he's making a statement. He's making a statement through these signs before the people. In verse 10 says that you relate in the hearing of your son and your son's son what I have done in Mizraim. He's not just doing this thing, sometimes, you think about, things happen various places and, it's remembered, for, especially now, it's easy to think about how something is popular or something is the quote unquote talk of the town for a day, a week, even a month. But here in verse 2 over here, he's doing a thing that he is saying is going to be this thing that's going to last for generations, right? He's doing this great and marvelous thing through these great and marvelous things that are going to be, as he said, something that is going to be repeated to the sons and to the sons' sons for generations to come, about what it is that is going down, or at that time, what is going down at Mizraim. And so we see.
This is not like what your grandfather. When your grandfather said I was just named the name.
Yeah, he did.
The,
that's kind of that is something that my grandfather used to always say, that when you talk about the Most High, oftentimes when introducing himself, he gives his credentials, and his main claim to fame, his main credential that he says is, I am Yahweh, Elohim, who brought you out from Egypt, right, under the hand of bondage, right? So when he's giving you that as part of who he is, like if somebody just asks you who you are, most times you'll say your name. If there's something that they can associate you with to better kind of understand, you might say that, right? You're giving them who you are, and maybe you'll give them some association so that they can.
with the gray hair.
I used to be, well, not Tony. I was just the one with kind of this unknown figure. But I had that gray patch in my head, right? And so there's things that can be associated with you that people use to know who you are and things like that. You might say who your brother is, or who your cousin is, or who you be with, or something. But over here, dealing with the Most High, he's giving you really the thing that he's giving you, this thing that could be said is his claim to fame to the nations. The Most High is kind of declaring his love and connection to this particular people, Israel, through these acts, right? He decided, because of the promise that he made to Abraham, now that he was going to not only declare Israel as his people, but really, these things that's going on are kind of the forming of the people of Israel, right? And so these acts, these wondrous acts, these signs that he is performing are these things that he's saying that you are to relate to your son and your son's sons about what he has done in Egypt, right? So these things are very important, right? And so what, and also we're talking about dealing with the condition of the heart. My thoughts, I've said my thoughts on this idea of the hardening of the heart, but however you think about it, if we say that the Most High, we say that he hardened his heart, we could also say what he didn't do is soften it, right? If we say that he hardened it, we could know that he didn't soften it, right? He didn't prepare it. He didn't make it ready for planting, right? He didn't do anything to it to cause it to be pliable or formable. And so, but what he did do was do all of these things that for some people, the things that he was doing kind of I would have that effect, because when we look and we see that he's doing all of these things, and as it says in verse 2, also what it says in verse 2, where it says that you will tell in the hearing of your son and your grandsons how I made a mockery of the Egyptians. If we're people of that time, and Egypt is this great power, people who see that, maybe like if you see, once you see the bully get beat up, that causes you then to think less of the bully, right? There's hope when you can see that the one who's over everything is not over everything, right? When you see the king, the power, the one that's the main ruler, when you see him being, as it says, made a mockery of, that does things in you. And so when we look and see what it is that the Most High is doing, he's doing these things, and these things actually it is working in the hearts of people so that they're able to have a better understanding as to who the Most High is. This is it's kind of the way I think about Yeshua and the works that he did. He performed more miracles than anything. And I feel like it's the same idea in terms of what was going on with the Most High in Egypt and the plagues. He's doing all these things, performing all these miracles, bringing all these attention to himself, and at the same time breaking down the thoughts and ideas of Egypt that go against him. And so when we look at Yeshua, where he is basically doing the same thing, where you have the Jewish status quo with the Pharisees, and the main religious structure, where he's coming in and he's tearing down at this religious structure, these traditions of men that have creeped in and taken over the situation, as well as dealing with people and their physical illnesses and their limitations, and he's breaking these the ceiling. He's destroying the thought that we look at these things that are going on in our carnality and in the flesh, and he's overpowering these things with the spirit. And so again, these things are kind of like dual purpose, where he's doing a functional thing like healing you, but at the same time, these things have great spiritual significance, and he's showing his power and who he is, and that he's able to actually be trusted in, and he's able to actually be the one who you have, who you place your faith in. And so when we look over here with the Most High, again, one of the things, right, that he says over here that you are to relay generationally is the fact that he made a mockery of the Egyptians, right? So we want to look at this a little bit here. Let me find my cursor here.
If you don't do it during corporation, you're gonna do that Passover.
What?
Because he commands the fathers later to
right.
Well, no, it was before in Exodus 6, I guess he said, teach your sons.
Okay, so what does this say? This says, and my signs which I have done among you, and you shall know that I am Yahweh. What version is this that I have here? Let me see what that word is. Let me get our tools down here. Let's see, verse 2. The word we're looking for. Oh, where he says, what things I have wrought in Egypt. What things I have wrought in Egypt. We want to look at this here. This word alal, which means to effect thoroughly, right? These things that he has used to affect them thoroughly, specifically to glean, by implication, overdo, that is maltreat, be saucy too. That's interesting. That's some type of hyperbole of the time. Be saucy too. That's interesting that's there, and that's probably this early 19th century yeah. Be saucy too. Pain, impose, abuse, affect, defile, glean, mock, practice thoroughly, right? And so when we look at this, right, thinking about impose, abuse, maltreat, mock, right? The Most High really is doing whatever he wants to these people, right? They don't have there's nothing that they can do to stop what it is that he wants to do. Sometimes you see, different, if you had like a professional basketball player and he's like playing with kids, he just does whatever he wants, right? The kids could never make a basket. They tried to make a shot and they just get it swatted away. The professional basketball player can just dunk on them at any moment, right? There's nothing that um this lesser entity can do to stop what the greater entity wants to do. And when we look at what it is that the Most High is doing, yes, he's asking for Pharaoh to release his people. But at the same time, he's asking, as we talked about this last week, he's asking with the idea that if you don't do what I'm asking you to do, if you don't readily submit your will to his will, there's going to be consequences and repercussions that come as a result of your disobedience. Right. So even though there's asking involved, again, we understand that this is really just a formality, in that he wants for there to be a submission of the will. And right, so again, we look at this idea, the Most High is imposing his will on the people. Oh, you don't want to do what I'm saying? All right, we'll see what this feels like. Right, and now we're up to the 8th plague, and it's just one thing after the other. And again, at every step of the way, we have the Most High bringing forth his will. Right. So again, we look at this word Allah, where it basically means to treat harshly or to deal severely with, to do evil deeds in general, or to or towards a person. And so, this is indeed what's going on with the Most High, right? In regards to Egypt in the sight of Israel. He's doing this to Egypt in the sight of Israel, because again, we look at verse 2 where it says he's doing all this, right? My signs which I have done among them, and you shall know that I am Yahweh. This is true for both Mizraim and Israel. They both will know that I am Yahweh.
And he's not in a rush, obviously.
No, there's no times table. There's no times table to it, right? I'll do this thing, I'll do that thing, I guess, until he gets to the end, couple plagues later from here. But he's just slowly but surely exacting his will against Pharaoh. But again, at the same time, this is for both Egypt and the Most High, because again, we have this idea of the sons telling it to the sons, right? The sons and your sons' is passing this on generationally. So we have the idea of those who will see what the Most High is doing, and it will cause them to believe and know who the Most High is, right? And continue in faith, right? When we look at that, there's a lot of things going on. You're seeing what he's doing, and then it's allowing you to know who he is. It's increasing your faith in who he is. And it's also, you also see the idea of the continuing of it, because you're passing it on to the next generation. You've been solidified in your faith so much so that you are giving this precious treasure to the ones that come after you. And this is part of the plan. This is what he's saying. This is why you're doing it. He's doing it so that you shall know that I am Yahweh. And even on the other side, you see with the Egyptians that they're gonna know too. Right? Everyone's gonna know. And so again, we think about this, this idea of knowing, right? With knowing, there is this acknowledgement. There's this idea of acquaintance. There's this idea of being aware of, right? There's the idea of intimate knowledge, right? And so when they are able to see the power of the Almighty, they're gaining a better understanding of, I'll say they're gaining a type of understanding of who the Most High is, and they're also getting, a type of acquaintance is being established with the Most High. And so again, these signs and these wonders, these things that he's doing, this exhibition of his strength that he's manifesting over here towards Egypt, again, everybody's seeing it, right? And so it's going to either cause you to continue in your rebellion, or it's going to cause your faith in him to grow. And so we saw with verse 3 here. Read verse 3 again for us here. Hold on one second. Right there. Read verse 3 right there.
And Moshe and Aaron came into Pharaoh and said to him, Thus said Yahweh Elohim of the Hebrews, Till when shall you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go, so that they may serve me. Okay, so we're able to see over here a key component in what is necessary for compliance is the idea of humbling oneself before me, right? The Most High is making a request of Pharaoh, and the way that Pharaoh is able to comply with the request is to humble himself before him, right? And so the problem is, of course, that Pharaoh will not humble himself before the Most High. He actually is Pharaoh. And so how can Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, humble himself? Well, first of all, let's look at this a little bit here. Anah, right? If we ever looked at what goes into the Day of Atonement, we sung today a Day of Atonement song. If we ever thought about what goes into the Day of Atonement, we know of this word here, which is Anah, which is let's see here, through the idea of looking down or browbeating, to depress, to abase self, afflict, shun, afflict self,
chasten, deal hardly with, exercise, force, right? All of these things that are connected with this idea of, it's translated as humble yourself, but the idea is to, we did kind of talk about this idea in another context last week with the idea of beating down or bringing the flesh into subjection, right? The same thing is true with the idea of this ana. If we think about this word in the context of atonement, right? You talk about the idea of afflicting your soul, right? The idea of not appeasing your carnality or the carnal mind or your flesh. And so, right, the kind of the fullness of that, if we think about Pharaoh, with the Most High making a request, right? He is dealing in pride, obviously, right? Where he's not able to submit. He's not able to humble himself before the Most High. And so he's doing the complete opposite of this. And he's not humbling himself. He's not dealing harshly with his own self. He's not allowing for himself to be chastened. He's allowing for himself to be puffed up. He's allowing for himself to remain swollen, right? He's only allowing for himself to be hard. And so, but we can see through this interaction that the necessity is for there to be a connection with the Most High. The way that you get to obedience is through humbling yourself, right? The way you get to obedience is by humbling yourself through humility, right? When something is asked of you, it takes something inside of you to say, okay, I will submit to your will, right? We can see over here this to a great degree when we look at children, right? When we make our requests as parents to our children, you have those hard-hearted ones who don't want to comply with your requests, right? And we see that with Pharaoh over here. He refuses, as he says, how long will you refuse to humble yourself, right? How long will you refuse to bring yourself down off of your proverbial high horse and allow for the will of the one who is greater than all to be done?
And then the longer they wait, the more they have to go through.
Right. Which when you think about it, doesn't make much sense. If he would only comply to the desires of the Most High, bad stuff isn't going to happen to him, right? If he would only just bow down to the Most High and his will, he is able to escape this pain that's coming as a result of his disobedience. And so when we think about this, even just from a logical standpoint, it turns into this thing that's really illogical, if I would just, it turns into this thing where if I would just do what's being asked of me, my life actually would be more easier. But because of the fact that I'm allowing for my pride to be this dominating force inside of me, is preventing me from the most logical conclusion that I could be aligning myself with, which is a life that is free of pain and discomfort. So instead of choosing a life that's free of pain and discomfort, he would rather deal in his pride, and you know, this is what we see. But again, when we think about this idea of this hard heart, right, that's what the result of a hard heart is, right? If you have this hard heart, again, you're not able to be shaped, you're not able to be formed, you're not able to be you're not able to conform, right? You're not able to be flexible, right? When you have this hard heart. And think about how Yeshua, where he talks about the sower and the seed, when he talks about the ground, the good ground is that loose ground. The good ground is that ground that doesn't have stones in it. The good ground is that ground that's able to, where it's able to get down deep inside of it, where those roots can grow, and the birds that's flying up above and come down are not able to just pick them up off of the surface. The only way that ground gets to be like that is for it to be softened. You know, when you have, for instance, when you have, you know, everyone who believes in the Most High should get some type of basic understanding of agriculture, because when we look at the Most High, we look at Yeshua and how he spoke, you know, you might just say, well, he talked to these people in ancient times and everybody, that's all they knew, so that's the only thing they talked about. I mean, maybe you can say that, but I'd like to think that there is actually some great significance with uh, the knowledge of the Most High and agriculture, and it's not just some consequential thing that has to do with the time, you know, at which when when Yeshua walked the earth. When you think about, for instance, a root vegetable, like say a potato or an onion or a carrot or garlic or beets, right? If that ground is too tight, the fruit part that grows and the root part that grows underground, if the ground's too tight, there's no room for it to expand, right? And so you'll have this little piece of thing that doesn't get very big because of the fact that it didn't have loose ground around it to swell out to. And so, you know, when you have, you know, these root vegetables, you want to be sure to have a nice aerated ground. You know, it's a ground that's kind of infused with air, like pockets, loose, right, where you can just reach down in the ground and just grab a handful of it, right, and not where you're touching it and like and you're forcing your fingers to push down in the dirt. That's not ideal, right? Well, it's interesting that when you think about it in that way, the connection between good ground and air. Ruach actually is air, it's breath, right? An essential ingredient to good ground is that ground being infused with the Ruach, being infused with breath, being infused with air. I should see some things popping off over here in this comment section. I'm over here when I'm saying all of this stuff. This is some things that's going on. You guys don't fell asleep over there, right? And so when you think about the idea of pliability, air is a important component to that equation, right? And again, we're talking about the ruach. So when we think about this hard heart, right, and this hard substance, if I got this hard substance, how am I able to get into? How can I penetrate this hard substance with air? It's just gonna go around it, beside it, beneath it. It can't penetrate. It can't go in. Right? There's a problem there, right? And so again, this idea of this hardening, there's no pliability. Also think about the idea of, and we see this a lot in the scriptures, something used to describe Israel, especially in the wilderness experience, was the idea of this stiff neckedness, right? When you have a stiff neck, it's kind of the same context where you're not movable, right? You can't turn readily because your neck is stiff, right? But this is what we want to happen, is to be able to turn to the Most High, to turn, but you can't turn because your neck is stiff. You don't want to turn because that air that he's blowing out at you through his words and through his speech is just rolling off the side of your stony heart, right? Where you're not able to turn, you're not able to be pliable. And so we see all of these things happening with these people who are this way because they can't humble themselves, right? If we think about the idea of humbling, we would be taking that stone, that hardness, and we would be breaking that thing up, right? Beating that thing down, break it. Yeah, you can turn the hardest things into powder. It's a thing that's possible to do, right? I walk around here all day. Well, when I go to work, right, and I get all dusty and dirty, I would say that 90% of the dust and dirt on me is from pulverized hard things, right? By the time it gets to my boots or to my pants, it's dust. But before it was dust, it was some cement or something, right? Something hard. And so
that black lung and all that stuff.
Well, that's from other things, but yeah, those things are the result of pulverized hard things that become particles. And yeah, where you can't breathe a rock in, right? You can't breathe like a piece of coal in, right? But you can breathe in is pulverized, the pulverized version of it. But how does it get to that place, right? From battering, from bashing, right? From hammering, from drilling, from pressure. And so when we look over here, the Most High is applying much pressure over here on the people. He's applying all types of strong pressure on Pharaoh and the people. With the end result to be a changing of the condition of the heart. And so we can see when we look at this a process that takes place. Oh, you got a hard heart. Oh yeah. Well, here's some pressure. Have this. Right, here's some things that you are going to have to go through, some battering that's going to go down, right? Some pounding, some pressing, some squeezing, some pushing, right? Some uncomfortableness is about to go down, so that you can be softened. Right? Some humbling is going to have to go down so that you can become humble. Okay, let's keep on going. Let's look at this some more. Let me put this verses back up here. We read down to we read down to 5. Let's see here. And so we see he says in verse 4 that he's going to bring these locusts into the territory. Now, when we look back and we think about the fact that there was already this thing of the dust and that was all over the place, and we saw with these flies that was just all over the place. They blocked all of the light. They blocked all of the everything. And so we look at what it says with the locust. You have this same type of a result with these locusts, where they cover the whole surface of the land. And so you're not able to see any of the land, but just locusts, which is just something that is just crazy to me. Like when I sit up there and I look at these people who when you look at these people who have beehives and stuff, and where they have on their little bee suits, and they're like their whole body is just covered with bees. Or if they take out those little slides that go inside of the little beehive thing, and that thing is just completely covered with just swarms of bees. They said the whole land was like that. Everything. Imagine that, these big old, and locusts, they're not even like these little things. They're like these big old things where they just cover everything. I couldn't imagine what that looks like. But good thing is, Israel, they didn't have to even worry about it. Israel did, because they was over in their place, and they were freed from these things, right? Remember, we talked about this last week, where a division was made, where this stuff now, because if you think about it, Israel, comparatively speaking, they had already decided, right? They saw those other things happen, and comparatively speaking, they're looking and they're ready to be rescued by their maker, right? They don't have a decision to make at this point yet, because they're being rescued. But the decision maker, the one that needs to be pressed, the one that needs to be pushed, the one that needs to change, the one that needs to turn, right? The one that needs to soften, he is the one who has a decision to make. And so he's the one who these things is going to happen to, right? He's the one who's going to be pressured. And so Pharaoh, that is, Mitzrayim, that is, right? And so the things are going to be going on, to him. And so again, we look at this, it's one thing after the other. All of these things are sequentially happening, one thing after the other. It says in verse 5, it shall cover the surface of the land so that no one will be able to see. They will also eat the rest that has escaped what is left to you from the last thing that happened was the hail. The hail came down and beat down everything, tore up all the vegetation and stuff all over the place. The hail did, and they will eat every tree with the sprouts for you out of the field. All of it. So if stuff was left over, if you had stuff left over from the last thing that happened, now you didn't have nothing left because the locust was going to eat that.
So you have a little bit of pride to say, well, I have this at least left.
Yeah, not no more. You did have it. Now you don't. And so all over the place. Hold on. Let's see. Let's read some more here. Let me see. Let me get my cursor over there. Let me get this out of the way. Okay, start there, verse 6. Let's read some more of this here.
Exodus 10:6. And they shall fill your houses and the houses of all your servants and the house of all the Mizrites, which neither your fathers nor your fathers' fathers have seen, since the day that they were on the earth to this day. Then he turned and went out from Pharaoh.
Okay, so these things was all over the place, eating up whatever was left. And then they was also up inside their houses too. And the houses of the servants. And the houses of the Mizrites. And they ain't never seen nothing like this. Neither your fathers nor your fathers' fathers have seen. Since the day that the earth, since there was a such thing as earth. They never seen no thing like this. Nobody never seen it. This is the worst thing that ever happened ever in the history of life itself. Nobody never seen that like this. Is what that says right there. They was everywhere. Can you imagine that? I can't imagine it. Just bugs everywhere. They didn't have no spray. They ain't no bug spray for that. What was they going to use? Maybe they thought they had some citronella plants or something that they might use, but that wasn't doing nothing because they was eating the plants. They ate everything. There was no escape, right? And so when you look at this here, let me see this here. Yeah, so when you look at this whole thing, it gives you the same kind of a thought as what we saw before with this idea of just being cloaked in darkness, right? Because over there in Mitzrayim, away from where Israel, was, you have everything literally everything covered in locusts, right? And so they're just in this this darkness, and again with the idea of what? Pressure. They're being pressured to give in to the will of the Most High. Give me my people. Give me what I want. Oh, you don't want to do that? Here, let me push you some. Let me pressure you some. Let me remove my grace away from you. Right? I put my grace over here in Goshen, where Israel is, removing it from you, leaving you out in utter darkness. Right? The light's over there. Right, where their stuff ain't covered in swarms of flies, or battered with hail, or covered with locusts. And so, again, thinking about this with the idea of thinking about it from a spiritual perspective, we have these things, this pressure that's happening for the purpose of coming to a desired result, which is compliance. The desired result here is compliance and conformity to the Most High and His will. That's all he had to do. Comply to the will of the Father.
Say, all right.
Just say, okay, I'll do it. I'm sorry, I'll do it. And when we think about it, this is what the Most High is requiring of each and every one of us, right? We begin with this hard and stony heart. This is where we begin. And then, he causes us to go through this life thing and experience various pressures that will then pulverize that stony heart and get down to the flesh of the matter, the softness, where you're able to be pliable and conform to his will and to his ways. This is what he wants. He wants to be able to cause you to be in a place of obedience unto his will, which, by the way, is good for you. Which, by the way, is something that if you think about it kind of like from a carnal kind of a perspective, if I'm this individual who wants to force my will upon you, most times you think about those types of things as somebody who wants to just has these selfishly led motivations, who wants to sit up here and cause you to exert their power and all of this on you for their own kind of selfish purposes. But if we think about this from a righteous perspective, and when the Most High is deciding to exert his will on you, is so that you live a life of rightness. Right? So that we're able to go around and deal with people in a right and just manner. And so, again, we think about this from even just from a logical perspective, right, is only illogical for us not to want to conform to his will and his ways, because these things could only be good for us if we just go ahead and do those things. But again, we have this problem of this hardness that needs to be softened, right?
That's why I think about the scripture. It talks about spare not the rod from the child.
Right.
You're not. The rod isn't. The rod is for correction, not for destruction.
Right. Right. And it's interesting, when you think about that, because at any moment, Egypt can just say, I submit to your will. I'll give you what you're asking for at any moment. And then actually when we kind of look forward into the situation, in order for there to be a mixed multitude, you had to have had Egyptians who said, I submit to your will, and I believe that you are the creator and sustainer of all things, and I want to follow after you. And so when we think about this, from that perspective, this whole time, the Most High, he's going in there for his people. He's going in there for his people, Israel. But whoever gets to the proper conclusion after being pulverized, he accepts. He accepts the collateral damage. He's going in there with a purpose. That purpose is Israel. But those that have eyes to see and ears to hear, they can too reap the benefits, because they've allowed for the condition of their heart to be changed by this pressure. The only way that it can be changed. Okay, let's read some more of this here. So let's see here. Verse 7. Verse 7.
And Pharaoh's servants said to him, till when would this one be a snare to us? Let the man go, so that they serve Yahweh, their Elohim. Do you not yet know the Mitzrayim is destroyed? And Moshe and Aaron were brought back to Pharaoh, and he said to them, go serve Yahweh, your Elohim, who are the ones that are going. And Moshe said, we are going into our young and our old, with our sons and our daughters, with our flocks and our herds, we are going, for we have a festival to Yahweh. And he said to them, let Yahweh be with you, as I let you and your little ones go. Watch, for evil is before your face. Not so. You men go now and serve Yahweh, for that is what you desired. And they were driven out from the presence of Pharaoh. And Yahweh said to Moshe, stretch out your hand over the land of Mitzrayim, for the locusts to come upon the land of Mitzrayim, and eat every plant of the land, all that the hail has left. And Moshe stretched out his rod over the land of Mitzrayim, and Yahweh brought an east wind on the land all that day and all that night. Morning came, and the east wind brought the locusts. And the locusts went up over all the land of Mizraim and settled within all the borders of Mizraim, very grievous. There had never been locusts like them before, nor would there again be like them. And they covered the surface of all the land, so that the land was darkened. And they ate every plant of the land and all the fruit of the trees which the hail had left. And no greenness was left on the trees or on the plants of the field in all the land of Mitzrayim.
Okay, so when we look at this, right, something to just think about, or we think about how this stuff even came in. Look at verse 13, where it says that Yahweh brought an east wind on the land, and that wind brought the locusts. And so, we see how, the Most High, brought this at this time, this pressure that he's bringing, which looks like judgment. The pressure looks like judgment, doesn't it? It looks like this is the end. Like there's no way to come back from this. All of the vegetation, all the plants of the land are gone. But again, we already know why he's doing this. We already know what the purpose of this is. But at the time looking at it, in the midst of it, it looks like judgment. It looks like the end. It looks like there's no comeback from this. But again, really what he wants to do is to cause a decision to be made and a choice to be made. And that choice is obedience. Okay, what verse did you leave off with?
15.
You read 15. Yeah. All right, 16.
Pharaoh then called for Moshe and Aaron in haste and said, I have sinned against Yahweh, your Elohim, and against you. And now please forgive my sin only this once, and pray to Yahweh, your Elohim, that he would only turn away this death from me. And he went out from Pharaoh and prayed to Yahweh. And Yahweh turned a very strong west wind, which took the locusts away and blew them into the sea of reeds. Not one locust was left within all the border of Mitzrayim. However, Yahweh strengthened the heart of Pharaoh, and he did not let the children of Israel go.
Okay, so we see over here again the same thing happened. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that this happened. I'm so sorry that I gotta go through this. Please take this thing away from me. Forgive me. Since it's over, he just goes right back to where he was before it started. And so that is not repentance. That's not what repentance looks like. That's not what a changed heart looks like. And so when we think about the actions of Pharaoh, we see the condition of his heart, where you have these episodes of softness, but understanding that at the root of these situations, it's really still just only hardness. right? These things are happening in the midst of it. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Please take this away. As soon as it's taken away, then he goes right back to where he was at the first. And so again, we talked about this um, a few weeks ago. You know, the example that Pharaoh gives us of what true repentance isn't. But also, you know, we're able to see what that true, um, you know, what that stony heart, what that carnal mind really looks like. We're able to see also this perfect example of what that carnal mind really looks like, right? And without the spirit, without the addition of that spirit infused into the heart, it's impossible for it to be changed. The condition of a man's heart, if it never uh, 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 is transformed from the condition of stoniness, hardness. It's never metamorphosized. It's never going to change. It's always going to be just like Pharaoh. When we talks about the fact that when it talks about the Most High hardening his heart, he's never dealing with his heart. The Most High never deals with Pharaoh's heart. He never gets his heart to a place of softness where he's able to conform to his ways, and this is the problem, and it still is. And so when we look at these people, you know, and we see these people out here where, you know, they make professions, they say you know, this or that, but at the end of the day, their actions always lead them back to the place, you know, where they started, because they've never truly had a intimate transformation in the spirit to cause their heart to be able to be softened so that they're able to be shaped and molded by the Most High, and be able to walk in his will and in his ways. When we look over here at this, you know, this very, very popular verse. It's a very important verse in terms of our in terms of our covenant. But if we look over here, and let's see. Start reading that verse 24 right there.
Okay.
Ezekiel 36:24.
And I shall take you from among the nations, and I shall gather you out of all lands, and I shall bring you into your own land. And
okay, so if we just think about this verse right here, this verse 24, this first thing that happens over here is this idea of a moving, a turning. There's a change in direction that happens first thing, right? Which is a type of compliance or conformability that's happening, right? I shall take you from among the other nations and gather you out of all the lands and bring you into your own land. You're going from one place to another. you've changed directions, you've turned, you've gotten to a place of compliance and turning and changing and softening, right? Which is an important component. And then 25 says what?
And I shall sprinkle clean water on you, and from you and you shall be clean. From all your filthiness and from all your idols I cleanse you.
Okay, so you have a turning, a changing, a complying, a softening, and then you have a cleansing, a washing that happens, right? Which is an important component to the situation, this washing that happens. And so we can see a 24 with Pharaoh, which is a yeah, I'm saying a verse 24. We can see a turning, a changing, a type of compliance, a movement. We can see a movement in a particular direction. His movement in a particular direction is partial compliance. But there's a step after that, which is a cleansing. So if he turns and comes out of the mud, but he never is cleansed, then he just remains dirty. He just moved. He's just dirty in another location, right? And so we have to really understand that there's really steps and phases to this whole situation. And people get excited about a movement. They get excited about a particular change, a type of change, a type of transition, right? A kind of movement that moves them from one place to another. But what about the cleansing, though? What about this other part? And when we think about a cleansing in connection with these plagues, right? We're talking about allowing the pressure to affect you, as an individual, right? Accepting this pressure that's coming from the Most High for what it is, right? And again, what it is this thing that's changing the condition of your heart. You have certain ones who it don't matter how many times they get whooped. They still gonna do whatever they want to do. Right? Or maybe they'll do a different thing, right? But inside they really want to still do the thing that they got whooped for, and then they just gonna make sure you don't know they did it now. Right? Because there can be a moving, a changing, a type of compliance, but there has to be a washing. Right? Because when we look over here, that's what happens. From all the filthiness, from all your idols, I cleanse you. If we think about Pharaoh, right? He had that pride thing. So, yeah, he wanted to move. Yeah, he wanted to move in the same direction the Most High wanted him to move in, which was letting the people go. But only because of the fact that it wasn't about him submitting, right? So there was the cleansing part would have been if he was doing it understanding that the Most High is indeed the Most High. But the only thing that got Pharaoh to do to comply with the Most High was the pain that he was enduring. But then once that pain ceased, then he just remained the same way that he was already. Right? So his movement wasn't connected to a cleansing. His actions wasn't connected to a cleansing. And so when we think about this from a spiritual perspective and how it really relates to us, when we think about, you know, what's necessary for us to really be affected by the Most High, is for our compliance to be connected with a cleansing and not just us going through motions. And then verse 26 says what?
And I shall give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you, and I shall take the heart of stone out of your flesh, and I shall give you a heart of flesh.
27.
And put my spirit within you, and I shall cause you to walk in my laws and guard my right rulings, and shall do them.
Okay, so over here we dealing with again a full irrigation of that stony heart, where you done took it from being a heart of stone and changed it into a heart of flesh. It's a transformation. It's going from one substance to another. It was a stone. It was this rock. It was this hard thing. But then it got pulverized and changed and transformed into this whole other thing, flesh. And not only that, but then being infused with the Spirit so that you're able to walk in the ways of the Most High. And so when we think about the picture that is drawn for us by Pharaoh and what we see, the process that's actually being kind of carried out over here, is looking and seeing how if the Most High went with these plagues is doing this for a particular result, which is to cause Pharaoh to align his will with the will of the Most High. And this is what we really need to be trying to do in our lives, is aligning our will with the will of the Most High. But the only way to do that is to allow him to change us and to allow him to destroy that heart of stone. Which, comes with the cleansing of all of the filthiness that's within us. Again, we look at Pharaoh, there's no cleansing going on over here with him. Because again, we see where every time it says Pharaoh hardened his heart, or Yahweh hardened the heart of Pharaoh. In other words, he's not transforming him internally through the Spirit. He's not changing him on the inside through the Spirit. He's just dealing with him on an external level. Okay, so let's go back over here. Okay, let's look verse 21. Let's read the rest of this.
And Yahweh said to Moshe, Stretch out your hand toward the heavens, and let there be darkness over the land of Mitzrayim, even a darkness which is felt. And Moshe stretched out his hand toward the heavens, and there was thick darkness in all the land of Mitzrayim for 3 days. They did not see one another, nor did anyone rise from his place for 3 days, while all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. And Pharaoh called to Moshe and said, Go, serve Yahweh, only leave your flocks and your herds behind.
Here we go again.
Let your little ones go with you too. But Moshe said, You yourself are to provide us with slaughterings and ascending offerings to prepare for Yahweh our Elohim, and our livestock are to go with us too. Not a hoof is to be left behind. For we have to take some of them to serve Yahweh our Elohim, and we ourselves do not know with what we are to serve until we come there. However, Yahweh strengthened the heart of Pharaoh, and he would not let them go. And Pharaoh said to him, Get away from me, watch yourself, and see my face no more, for in the day you see my face, you die. And Moshe said, You have spoken rightly. Never again do I see your face.
Okay, very good. So we see over here again, when we look at these plagues where there's kind of this continual theme that whether we're dealing with directly or indirectly with this darkness that's happening. This now over here we have literal darkness. Over here we have literal darkness, but then before we had these things that created darkness, just because of the sheer enormity of the amount of things like the bugs, the swarms, the flies, the locusts. Now over here we have this literal darkness, but with Israel, of course, there's light, right? And so when we think about things like where it says in John 8:12, where it says that Yeshua spoke again to them, saying, I am the light of the world, where he that follow me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. Israel over here, they literally was the light. They had light where the rest of the known world was in darkness. Where Egypt, where they experienced nothing but utter darkness that they felt. Right? But this stuff that was happening wasn't changing Pharaoh's heart. It wasn't doing nothing but making him mad. Right? These things that was happening wasn't causing him to move forward closer to the Most High. It was causing him to move further away from the Most High. Right? It wasn't causing his heart to be softened. It was causing his heart to be hardened. Right? And so again, when we think about this from a spiritual perspective and thinking about it in terms of, how the condition of our heart should be, right? The Most High is calling for our heart to be pliable, and he's causing for us to be able to be affected by these things that he's doing positively, right? He wants us to be able to get to the place of understanding that he's doing these things. He's doing these things for the purposes of causing the heart of the people to be changed, right? He's doing this with the intent on the result being, okay, I will do it. Okay, I will submit to your will. And so again, when we think about the Most High exerting his dominance over Pharaoh, again, every step of the way, he's taking, showing him his power, showing him who he is. He's showing him that he has the ability at any moment to cause, destruction if he wants. And all he has to do is just relent. All he has to do is allow for this pressure to affect him in a way that will bring about compliance. And so, when we think about this, again, the Most High is doing this to Egypt in the sight of Israel. And, we could think about this from a perspective of things that may happen in our lives where, the Most High is doing things to us or allowing things to happen to us to get to the end result of a closer relationship with him. That's what he wants for Israel over here. They had to endure those first few plagues that happened. But at the same time, they knew that the other plagues were happening, but they were not being affected by them. But they were being affected by them in the way that they were able to experience and know the power of the Most High and see his power manifest. And so when we think about, our life experience, there's always going to be a time where that pressure is going to be felt by us. But that pressure, again, is for our good because he's taking us through the steps of transformation and showing us, that he loves us by making us go through these uncomfortable situations with the end result being the condition of the heart being changing from one state to another. And so thinking about that, I wanted to just look over real quick in Isaiah, because when we think about the fact that, again, knowing that Israel is the chosen of the Most High, and he wants to do a work with Israel, if we remember the promise made to Abraham was that the seed of Abraham is going to bring about blessings for the whole earth. If we look at if we look at Genesis 12, read 1 through 3 real quick.
And Yahweh said to Abram, go yourself out of your land, from your relatives and from your father's house, to a land which I show you. And I shall make you a great nation, and bless you, and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. And I shall bless those who bless you, and curse him who curses you. And in you all the clans of the earth shall be blessed.
In you all the clans of the earth shall be blessed. Right? So the blessing is going first of all towards Abraham and his seed. And I will bless those. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to bless those that bless you. I'm going to curse those that curse you. And in you, all the clans of the earth shall be blessed. So we got to remember that this all started with the Most High saying to Abraham that because of you, your people definitely going to be blessed. But all the earth also, the clans of the earth also is going to be blessed. And so when we think about what's going on in Egypt, in the Torah portion, again, he's going in there saying, let my people go. But we know that more people than his people came out. And so we want to look at something real quick, because we still talk about the condition of the heart, because he's not just looking for the condition of Israel's heart to change. He's really looking for the condition of man's heart to change on a whole. So we want to read these verses and talk about them real quick and then be done talking about the scriptures today. Let's see over here. Let me pull up Isaiah. Isaiah 19. Let's start. Okay, start reading right there.
The message concerning Mitzrayim, see, Yahweh is riding on a swift cloud, and he shall come into Mitzrayim, and the idols of Mitzrayim shall tremble at his presence, and the heart of Mitzrayim melt in its midst. And I shall stir up Mitzrites against Mitzrites, and they shall fight, each one against his brother, and each one against his neighbor, city against city, reign against reign. And the spirit of Mitzrayim shall vanish within them, and I destroy their counsel, and they shall seek the idols of the murderers, the mediums, and the sorcerers.
Okay, so hold on one second. So it says the spirit of Mitzrayim shall vanish, or shall fail, or their spirit shall be demoralized within them. Mitzrayim, Egypt, this great, even how we look over with the idea of the Israel being mocked. We see this from another perspective over here, from a prophetic standpoint, future. We're looking to see where it talks about the spirit of Egypt shall vanish within them. The spirit of valor and courage shall be diminished within them. They fighting each other, right? One against another, his neighbor, city, kingdom against kingdom. But we're talking about Egypt, though. We're not talking about Israel. We're talking about Egypt. The Most High over here demoralizing Egypt for whose sake? We'll see. Keep on reading. Verse 4.
And I shall deliver the Mithrites into the hand of a cruel master and a fierce sovereign to rule over them.
That's what he did to his people Israel. When they were disobedient, he caused for them to be overtaken and ruled and to have fierce sovereigns ruled over them. That's what he did towards Israel. But over here, he doing it over Egypt. Okay, keep on going.
Declares the master, Yahweh of hosts. And water shall fail from the sea, and the river wasted and dried up. And the river shall stink, and the stream shall be weak and dried up. Reeds and rushes shall wither. Bare places by the river, by the mouth of the river, and every sown field by the river shall wither. It shall be driven away and be no more. And the fishermen shall lament, and all those who cast hooks into the river shall mourn. And they who spread nets on the water shall pine away. And those who work in fine flax, and those who weave fine fabric shall become ashamed.
Okay, so he's just going down a list. All these different aspects of life are being brought to ruin. All of these things that is going on, different parts, rivers is stinking, the waters is getting messed up. There's nothing that's going on. Fishermen is mad. The people who mess around with the textiles and the fabrics, their situations all jacked up. But we're not talking about Israel though. We're talking about Egypt. Keep on going, verse 10.
And its foundation shall be crushed, and all the wage workers grieved in being. The princes of Zoan are only fools. The counsel of Pharaoh's wise ones has become senseless. How do you say to Pharaoh, I am the son of the wise, the son of ancient sovereigns? Where are they? Where are your wise men? Let them show you, and let them know what Yahweh of the host has counseled against Mitzrayim. The princes of Zoan have become fools. The princes of Noph are deceived. They, the cornerstone of her tribes, have led Mitzrayim astray. Yahweh has mixed a perverse spirit in her midst, and they have led Mitzrayim astray in all her works, as a drunkard strays in his vomit. And there is no work for Mitzrayim by either head or tail, palm branch or bulrush.
Okay, so when we read this all the way down to 15, we see all of this stuff that's going on against Egypt, and we see that, you know, there can be a comparison that's made between what the Most High does with Israel because of their disobedience that he does within Israel, that he's doing with the purposes of causing Israel to turn back to him. When we look over here and see what he's doing with Mizraim, you could look at this and say, well, he's just judging this wicked nation and allowing them to just continue to be ruined and continue to be people that are on the outside of what the Most High would have. Especially when we look in verse 14, where he's sitting over here and says that he has mixed within her the spirit of distortion or perversity or crookedness or iniquity, right? Why would he be doing this? Is he just like against Egypt just for no reason? Is it just judgment for just the so-called arch nemesis of the Most High? I mean, of Israel. Let's keep on going, because when we look at this, we can see that like unto the relationship that the Most High has with Israel in terms of punishing Israel in a real way because of disobedience, he punishing Egypt over here in a real way. Well, look what it says in verse 16. Read verse 16 right there.
In that day, Mitzrayim.
Hold on. And in that day, when we talk about when it says in that day, we talking about prophetic. And for Isaiah specifically, when he says in that day, when we look at the verses where he says in that day, most times you look at those things, we're dealing with messianic prophecy. So we're talking about end time prophecies. Okay, so 16 says what?
In that day, Mitzrayim shall become like women, and tremble and fear because of the waving of the hand of Yahweh of hosts, which he waves over it. And the land of Yehudah shall be a fear to Mitzrayim. Everyone who mentions it fears for himself because of the counsel of Yahweh of hosts, which he has counseled against it. In that day, 5 cities in the land of Mitzrayim shall speak the language of Canaan and swear by Yahweh of hosts. One is called the city of destruction. In that day, a slaughter place to Yahweh shall be in the midst of the land of Mitzrayim, and a standing column to Yahweh at its borders. And it shall be for a sign and for a witness to Yahweh of hosts in that land of Mitzrayim. When they cry to Yahweh because of the oppressors, he sends them a savior and an Elohim, and shall deliver them. And Yahweh shall
hold on. Read verse 20 again.
20? And it shall be a sign for a sign and for a witness to Yahweh of hosts in the land of Mitzrayim. When they cry to Yahweh because of the oppressors, he sends them a savior and an Elohim, and shall deliver them.
Okay, so again, when we look at this, there is a serious kind of connection to what we have previously seen done with Israel being done with Egypt, where he's basically judging the nation. But he's judging the nation, and just like when we see in the Torah portion where this judgment is coming down on the nation, and Israel's looking at it one way, it's drawing them closer to the Most High. But from an Egyptian perspective, it's pushing them away. But then we see over here where we see these things that are going on with Egypt, and the things that's happening to Egypt is actually causing Egypt to turn towards the Most High. So the pressure, the pulverization of that stony heart that's happening is having a different result over here, where it's causing them to actually turn towards the Father. Verse 21, what's that say?
And it shall be known to Mitzrayim, and the Mitzrites shall know Yahweh in that day, and make slaughtering and meal offerings, and shall make a vow to Yahweh and pay it. And Yahweh shall smite Mitzrayim, smite it and heal it, And they shall turn to Yahweh, and he shall hear them and heal them. In that day there shall be a highway from Mizraim to Asher, and Asher shall come into Mizraim, and Mizraim into Asher, and Mizraim shall serve with Asher. And in that day Israel shall be one of three with Mizraim and Asher, even a blessing in the midst of the earth, whom Yahweh of hosts shall bless, saying, what blessed is Mitzrayim, my people, and Asher, the work of my hands, and Israel, my inheritance.
Okay, so when we look over here at what is going on with Egypt over here, verse 22 says, Yahweh shall smite Egypt, smite it and heal it. Right? He's going to, and they shall turn to Yahweh, and he shall actually hear them and heal them. When we look at this, the similarity is the fact that judgment is happening to the people. But the difference is that judgment is causing the people to not rebel, but turn towards the Most High. And so he's performing these judgments on the people, and this pressure, this pushing, this pulverizing of the stony hearts. And now the people are getting to a place of conformity and changing. Look at this. These last few verses are very interesting, where it says, in that day Israel shall be one of three with Mitzrayim and Asher. Israel shall be one of three with Egypt and Assyria. Two of the places that put Israel into captivity now are in this three-way covenant with each other. They're in a covenant with each other. Israel is with Egypt and Assyria, even a blessing in the midst of the earth. Whom Yahweh of hosts shall bless, saying, blessed is Egypt, my people. When we look in the scriptures and where Yahweh is talking about my people, he's always talking about Israel. When we look in the scriptures where we see that phrase over here, the work of my hands, we can find that here where we just seen it at. We could find that in, let's see, 45:11. What's that say?
Thus said Yahweh, the set apart one of Israel, and his maker, do you ask me about my sons, what is to come, and about the work of my hands do you command me?
When we see him saying the work of my hands over here, that's in the context of his son. That's in the context of Israel. But back over here, and what we were just looking at, 19, he's talking about Assyria, the people who put Israel in captivity. But in this end time prophecy, again, we see Israel is connected with its captors in this three-way covenant, and they're all serving the Most High. The pulverizing has taken full effect on the people. As it were, it went from one place where he's doing all this bad stuff to this people to get Israel to be freed. But the effect that it had on Israel was a different effect than it had on the people who was actually being punished. But over here in this prophecy, the pulverizing is taking place, and what actually happened was the people who were being pressured, pushed, pulverized actually changed and turned towards the Most High. Also, 60. Let's see, 60 and 21. What's that say?
And your people, all of them righteous, shall inherit the earth forever. A branch of my planting, a work of my hands, to be adorned.
He talking about Israel again. We see this thing is in the scriptures 3 times, and two of the 3 times when he says the work of my hands, he's talking about Israel. And so when we look back at 19, now we see where the Most High is given these titles or these little phrases that he typically connects with his people. He's given them to these other nations who have formed this covenant with his people.
Nations that he used to polarize his people.
Yes. Yes. And so the thing that is the connecting tissues over here is the fact that the Most High is going to accept those who have allowed his pulverization of their hearts to change their hearts and turn them back to him. He's going to do it to Israel, but he's also going to do it to whomever, right?
Whoever takes that pulverizing and actually uses it to change.
That's it. So with our Torah portion, we can see the negative example, but when we look into the prophets, we actually see the positive example of the same thing happening to the same people, actually, Egypt, right? Or whether you want to say it's Egypt or a type of Egypt. We know that the thing that the Most High is doing is the same, right? He's putting judgment on these people, but even in the midst of the judgment, they have the opportunity to turn from that judgment and change and repent and be cleansed by the irrigation of the heart. And so, the thing that we want to kind of leave on is thinking about, what actually is the condition of our hearts. Are we actually allowing the things that the Most High has allowed us to go through or has caused in our life, the pressures, the pushings, the things that even look like judgment? It feels like he's killing us, but in all actuality, he only wants for us to turn towards him and change, and become compliant to his will and to his ways. We as his people, he wants to do that for us first. But we see over here from a prophetic perspective that he got his people joined to these other peoples, and everybody's reaping the benefits. Nobody's safe from the beatings and the whoopings. But all of those beatings and whoopings could actually be something that has a chastising effect, which is about having a positive transformation at the end. And so we have to be able to get to the place where we accept the tests and the trials that that are put in our way, understanding that he's doing all of these things to cause us to have our hearts be pulverized and changed to dust, where he can mix the air and the water and form us into something that's pliable and something that's usable for his purposes. Okay. All right. So that being said, for now, I think we will go ahead and be done with the readings for this week. And hopefully, y'all willing, we will be back on next week with the next part of the Torah portion. And we hope that everyone enjoys the rest of their Shabbat and enjoy your week. Shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Shalom.